Welcome to the Rose City, Rip City, Stumptown, and Bridgetown. Welcome to the 4th episode of My Real Portland, the podcast. I'm My Real Portland host, Joseph Lyons. I'm so grateful that you've tuned in and you're about to meet 3 amazing Portland originals, a comedian, a podcast and comedy show host, and a musician and jingle writer. Each My Real Portland episode features amazing artists and performers from all around the city. I'll ask them each the Fast Five, and then I'll throw in a game show on top of it all for a fun night out with friends, German food, and beer. Tonight's show was recorded live at Portland's Jade Lounge next to the Slide Inn at 23rd and Ankeny on July 11th, 2018. Next show is going to be Tuesday, August 14th at 7 p.m. Happy hour is at 6:30. Speaking of Portland originals, this show is produced by myself, Joseph Lyons, Portland Realtor, helping home buyers and sellers make their real dreams become real estate. Putting this show together is my real dream, and I support this fun hobby with my professional day job in real estate. And my career is all word of mouth, so please tell others you know of My Real Portland, the realtor, Joseph Lyons. That's josephlyons.com. And now, on with the show.
It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer. So pick up a beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band. It's My Real Portland.
Hello! Welcome to the Jade Lounge, the verdant Jade Lounge, coming to you live at 23rd and Southeast Ankeny in my hometown, Portland, Oregon. This is My Real Portland, highlighting real people and real stories from all around the area. I'm your host, Joseph Lyons, and I've got a great show lined up for you this evening, including a Portland musician. I know him from the Todd Glass show as Jingle Joe, Joe McKenzie. He's a podcaster and co-host of the monthly comedy show Minority Retort. It's Jason Lamb. And a comedian I've been following for years, and he didn't even know he had a stalker. It's improviser, actor, and comedian Joe Hieronymus. So a little known fact, when 3 Joes get together in a room, one of them is Joe Blow, one of them's Joe Schmo, and one of them's Mojo, and we'll find out which one of the 3 of us is who later on in the show. So what's happened in Portland in the last month? It's been really quiet here, hasn't it? A few months ago, you all know about Barbecue Becky, who called the cops on a group of black people a few months ago in Oakland. That's right, boo. You can boo, it's all right, it's Portland. That was followed by Permit Patty and a host of others all across the nation. Not to be outdone, we now have our own constituent, Kathy, when Oregon Representative of House District 51, Janelle Bynum, was out canvassing in her district on July 3rd. A woman called the cops on her. When police showed up, Representative Bynum handled the situation with aplomb, thanking the police and even taking a selfie with the officer to show good spirits. Since then, her campaign has gained national awareness from NPR and the New York Times. Meanwhile, hundreds of families continue to come to the U.S. southern border, seeking refuge from horrible situations in Central America, despite the Trump administration's horrific family separation rule that's been implemented for undocumented immigrant families. What a terrible sentence to say. In the past month, the Abolish and Occupy ICE protest began here in Portland after Senators Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden and Representatives Bonamici and Blumenauer caused an uproar for being denied access to federal prison in Sheridan, Oregon, just outside of Portland, where some immigrants are detained. The Occupy ICE movement is now, that started here on June 17th, is now in, 3 or 4 weeks, is now in Greenwich, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Louisville, Atlanta, Detroit, San Diego, Tacoma, Los Angeles, and all across the nation. Yeah. So, Portland State Armed Police shot and killed Jason Washington, an African-American Navy veteran, good guy with a gun. Protests over whether the school should have armed police didn't stop the school's leaders from voting to give the school's police force guns 2 years ago. Jason's brother Andre said, split-second decisions made by poorly trained and inadequate, overzealous campus police caused our family and community to lose a wonderful human being. and also had this to say: black men being gunned down by white police officers is an affliction in America. So all of that here in Portland in the last month. So finally, this past week, both Canada and U.S. celebrated national holidays. My business partner, Ernest, was up in Canada for Canada Day, so he texted me on July 1st, Happy Canada Day. And I thought, great, thanks for rubbing it in. And on July 4th, he emailed me and said that he was stuck in Canada and he wasn't going to be back for an extra day. And I said, are you sure you want to come back? You know the Civil War has just begun. And no more than about 60 seconds did I finish sending the email that he called me from Penticton, British Columbia, saying, no, you're kidding. It didn't actually start. He had been in Canada for days and wasn't actually sure if I was telling him the truth or not. So that, of course, this second Civil War was started by some idiot talk show host who thought that liberals, or started spreading this rumors that liberals were going to start the second Civil War on July 4th. And to kind of rub it in his face, there was this whole movement of second Civil War letters that were written home. And all across the nation, people were making fun of people. So there are some that were written specifically about Portland. I'd like to share them with you. So Scott Unrein writes, Dearest wife, we haven't had at the Chutes beer or at Stumptown coffee for days and have taken refuge in the nonfiction section of a public library. A battalion from the east has artillery, but the trajectories are based on flat earth theory, so we are safe. Steve Marmel writes, My dearest Madison, while engaging hostiles in Santa Clarita, we found ourselves pinned down between a Starbucks, a Pete's, a Seattle's Best, and an Einstein's Bagels. We are running low of seasonal blends and jalapeno cheddar. Send rations. Regards, Corey. And this from Jen Berry. My dearest, I pray this letter reach you before the action rages in earnest. We science teachers are locked arm in arm in DNA double helix while singing Tom Lehrer's periodic table song. Thank you, Jen Berry, the first Portland Irregulars. All right, so now with that, it's time for the show. My first guest has been part of Portland's comedy scene for years. He's an actor, improviser, writer, and stand-up comic. He's been seen at Curious Comedy, Helium Comedy Club, and Facebook show Live in Portland. Please welcome to My Real Portland, comedian Joe Hieronymus.
Hello, thank you. How about a round of applause for yourselves for being here? I'm really happy to be here because it's way easier to come do shows in front of people like this instead of if I had to come and try to find each one of you. I don't know where any of you live. I mean, it's like knock knock. Hey, do you want to hear some jokes? No. My name is Joe. It's easy enough, but I'll help you out. It stands for just ordinary Joe. My last name is Hieronymus, and I tell you this because at least once or twice a week someone's asked me, is your last name made up? And I always want to say, yeah, my name's made up. But your name's made up too. Every name, every word. We made them all up. You guys are great. How many people have been to this show before? By a round of applause. Awesome. And who's here for the first time? Yeah, great. Yeah. It's fantastic to have you. I like to call people who come to shows nice holes. Because it's the opposite, trying to change things, you know. Speaking of making words up, I'm making up nice hole. Okay, there we go. It's great being on a podcast because they can't tell if I have my set list right here. Speaking of words we like to make up, these are two regular words that I like to pass along to my friends that will get you out of just about any situation. And those two words are family stuff. That's all you have to say. You don't want to go to work today? Call in. Say family stuff. They've got you covered. You got a date you want to break with a friend? Family stuff. They understand. Family stuff is like the perfect societal safe word for any situation. Interestingly enough, family stuff is a horrible safe word for sex. Don't want to say it. You know what I like is nice hole. That's a great way to get out of stuff. I think it is weird how we use language, though. It's like, for instance, how we refer to intercourse as penetration rather than enclosure. Doesn't that sound way kinder? What'd you do last night? Well, I was getting enclosed by a real nice hole. It's the way to go, you know. It's the way we like to do stuff here. This last weekend, I was at a bar drinking a Tecate, you know, just trying to fit in. When I made the mistake of making eye contact with someone, and I don't know, when you all look at me, do you think, I'd hit that? Or, that's been hit. Like a lot. My friend called me a narcissist, so I had to sit down and take a real long, hard look in the mirror. I think he was on to something. Now that you know a little bit about me, I think it's fair to tell you a little bit of jokes, as promised. These are some jokes I've written down. Now, some of these are silly, and some of these are political. I'm going to let you decide. We'll decide as we go along whether they're silly or political. The first joke, and don't worry, my reverse psychologist said this is going to be just fine. It's going to be great. 9 out of 10 numbers are not 9. Okay, that one's kind of silly. That's kind of silly. You know, if guns look like Reeboks, kids wouldn't take them to school because nobody wears Reeboks anymore. Sounds political, but still kind of silly. It's kind of a double one. If you're missing any of your fingers or your toes, you can count on me. I think that's in the silly column, if we're keeping track. Do you ever think that Christians' only black friend is Jesus? I think that's pretty political, I guess. I don't know. Pythagoras was in a love triangle. But man, everybody in it was a square. I just had to break up with my girlfriend recently. Aww. It's okay, because she was a bit of a negative Nancy, a Debbie Downer. She was always like, oh, my pussy's half empty. And it just didn't really work out. But I was pretty bummed. I started writing some poetry, some haikus, okay? Maybe you don't like haikus. Wait, let's start that with the fingers again. This is a haiku. Maybe you don't like haikus. Well, you just heard one. Sorry, that's pretty snarky. Here's another one that ratchets up the difficulty level. How catastrophic is it for claustrophobics inside outdoor stores? It's a question we can't answer. Joe mentioned I'm an actor, so I'd like to just show a little bit of my full range. This is my impression of a NASCAR fan. A NASCAR fan who is also a kitty cat. Meow. 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 It's just good writing, you know. Had some really good people on that one. I was trying to write a fart joke, but it came out as a poop joke. It's just, whoops. Gross. Worst Chestershire sauce ever. Some of these aren't jokes. They're just things that happened in my head. And I'm sorry. My brain does this. Here's another impression. This is my impression of indignant tofu. I am not a piece of meat. Me too. I think it's rude how we only talk about elephants when they're not in the room. And I only talk about bunny rabbits when I'm using air quotes. And I think turtles get away with too much sass. Oh, snap. I did mention I'm recently single. I've been thinking about getting a dog to help out with my loneliness, but I'd probably just teach it how to talk, you know, try. But and then I'm worried, what's that dog gonna say? You know, it's like, hey, there's somebody at the door, just letting you know. It's a comedian going door to door telling his dumb jokes. Or, hey, there's some kids playing basketball down the street. Flint still doesn't have clean drinking water. Or, I love you more than you've ever loved me. I think that last one, you guys are like, he's not ready to have children. He's just not ready. I like it, you guys. I got you at the, well, you're eating, so I don't know if you guys over here, you're like, what's he going to say next? I don't know either. It's great to be here in Portland. It's tough dating here. I was dating somebody. We didn't. She ended up getting proposed to by somebody else in a hot air balloon, and I take issue with this because if you get in a hot air balloon with someone, only one of two things is going to happen. They're going to do the cliche and propose to you, or they're going to push you out and murder you. Either way, your life is over. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time here. Well, I got some, what is that, sauerkraut and scallops? You want to get in? No, I don't like things that taste like vinegar. Like, no, thank you. I do appreciate you guys' time. You've been a very wonderful audience. If I could leave you with one thing, it's don't be an asshole, be a... Asshole. Thank you so much. Hail Satan.
All right, Joe's grabbing a seat.
It's like the opposite of stand-up.
Exactly, right?
It's so weird that they named comedy stand-up comedy, not like, hey, I'm going to tell you jokes. Like, this is what they're doing, standing up.
What percentage of stand-up comics do you think actually use a stool for the majority of their comedy? I mean, we've got Paula Poundstone. Mark Maron uses it about like 30%.
You mean just sitting on it or like humping it?
Oh, are you talking about Joe Rogan?
Or any open mic I've been to in the last 8 years.
Oh, seriously? Okay, so you're from Missouri, right?
Yes, Kansas City.
What brought you out here?
I was didn't want to live in Missouri anymore. And Portland at the time was one of the cheapest places on the West Coast.
Okay, was that like 1875? When are you talking
right
about?
Right around then. It was 1998, the summer of '98. when McGuire and Sosa, the iMac, remember those?
When the dream of the 90s was still alive in Portland, right?
I think they wrote that song about me moving here. They're like,
Just maybe a little show about it. Maybe was Portlandia all about you then?
God, I hope not.
So you've been making people laugh for years. What made you decide to go into comedy?
Being sad all the time. No. It's just one of those things. You got to do it. A lot of people say it's a calling. It's like I could just sit at home and play MLB The Show on my PlayStation, or I could go out and like try to entertain people and get social that way. I do like being the center of attention. If I'm gonna go out and be social, it's way better than just sit. Why is that guy just talking all the time? It's like give me a microphone.
I was looking at one of your posts recently, and you had like 1 week where there was at least one show every night, if not two. Yeah. So you're out there doing this like every night.
For the most part, yeah. I'm usually doing. There's some streaks where I look at the calendar and there's like, it's like, wow, I haven't been home at night for like 3 months. Or like most of the time these days I kind of pump the brakes a little bit, and I'm usually about 3 to 5 shows a week.
I can tell you for sure that in the last 4 months, this show, I've only done 4 of them, is like the only thing that I've done in the evening. So that's I'm like the opposite of you. That's amazing.
What's in your Netflix queue that keeps you home?
Okay, honestly, I've been watching reruns of Law and Order SVU. And I'm like on the 5th time around where I know like everything that's going to happen, and yet I still watch with suspense.
It's so great. It's like the first one, you're like, what's good? Who did it? And you don't even know the first time, second, third time through. It's so rewatchable.
Like, okay, I've got a question.
Justice getting served? Yeah.
Exactly. So I've got a question for my Aunt Lucy. How many times do you think you've seen the average Perry Mason episode? And does it still surprise you at the...
The old Perry Mason or the new Perry Mason?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, actually, talking about period pieces. Law and Order itself is a period piece. You go back in time and you watch like the evolution of cell phone history through the last 17 years. It's amazing.
Is it the old Perry Mason or the new one, or both?
Oh, the old, and I don't ignore the new.
It's not as good as his early work.
I'll take Raymond in any form.
That's great. Those are they're like little teleplays. The set pieces are just amazing.
So you not only are funny when you go out and do shows every night here in Portland, but you're also funny online.
Uh-oh.
And I went through your Twitter history, and I wanted to ask you about
like the
some of
Secret
these.
Service.
I've done my research for this show. Here's something that you tweeted recently that I thought was particularly interesting. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he owes thousands of dollars in student debt with a stagnant minimum wage job without benefits that doesn't cover the rent. That sounds really familiar to me.
Yeah, it's a little close to home. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie.
Do you fish?
No, but I am in debt and I do work for minimum wage.
Here's another one that you wrote online. For someone who regularly crosses personal boundaries, Trump sure seems obsessed with borders.
That you were reading those Civil War tweets. I don't remember whose it was. The best one I read was Soga is like, well, let's just build a wall out of Hillary's emails because they can't seem to get over it. That's so good. It's not mine. I wish I remembered who wrote it.
Okay. Before I ask you my last question, I had this thought while I was thinking about the show the other day. And I know you get a lot of questions about your last name. Has anyone ever suggested to you that your comedy career might be a little bit more popular if you switched your first and last name to become Hieronymus Joe?
No one has ever suggested that. No, but
would anyone go to see Hieronymus Joe over Joe Hieronymus?
All right. When I'm
just
changing it on my phone when I get off
Just
stage.
give it a shot. I mean, I have these random ideas once in a while, and sometimes they work. It might ruin your career. So, Okay, so let's do some plugs. How can people follow you? What are you coming? What are you doing next?
Well, most of my accounts are private because the Secret Service has come at me because of my anti-Trump tweets.
I was going to ask you about that. Your Twitter is private, and I was like, "How is this? Why is this private?"
It's anytime there's a lot of trolls online that like if you like tweet about Trump, there's his supporters will do a search and find out who's tweeting about it and then report it. And somebody reported mine, and I thought I was dancing the line a little bit, but they were some that the Secret Service came and visited me at my work about my tweets. They were really cool. They were actually thought they were funny. But they were like, you can't offer to pay $1 to kill the president. But so I made everything private so that way I knew if people were turning me in, they were my friends. They cared. There was something going on. But you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook with just my last name, Joe Hieronymus. I haven't been very creative in coming up with like a stage name other than that, but it might change to Hieronymus Joe tomorrow. So
the good thing about the Trump administration is they are so dumb they would not figure out that Hieronymus Joe is actually Joe Hieronymus.
Just grow a mustache again and just like, nope, completely different human.
All right, that sound means it's time for the Fast Five. Joe Hieronymus, are you ready for the Fast Five?
I'm ready.
All right, Joe, the first question of the Fast Five is, what's your favorite nickname for Portland?
Ooh, I really like Bridgetown. It's classic. Mm-hmm. It sounds like maybe that's what they should have gone with in the first place instead of Portland or Portland. It's like Sea Sky. I don't know. It's Bridgetown. We got more bridges than most places, right?
Had they named us back then, now that you mention it, back in the 1850s, there were no bridges, so we would have been Fairytown.
Ooh, yeah.
Which actually I think is a really catchy name.
That's actually more appropriate.
I know. I kind of like Fairytown, and I think I need to start this trend. Hashtag Fairytown.
Right.
What's your favorite summer outdoor activity in town?
Ooh, I was going to say napping, but that could also be napping. Outdoor activity. I like wiffle ball a lot, because there's no stakes, but it's still a game. Mm-hmm. And nobody knows what's going to happen when that ball goes out of your hand, hits the bat. I do like wiffle ball. I like walking around and smelling some of the smells. Not all of them, but some of them.
Depends on the neighborhood.
Yeah, and walking by houses and dreaming someday that I might own something like a house.
You just happen to be talking to a realtor, by the way. So
cool.
These electric scooter things that are going around Portland, have you heard of them, by the way?
I've heard of them. I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, worth every cent or totally senseless?
I got rid of my bike, so mostly because I didn't like pedaling. It sounds like it's worth every cent. Who wants to go uphill and with all these people? Because motorists here are horrible to bicyclists. And so if you're going uphill and you're like, oh, I smoke and I had 3 whiskeys last night, they don't care. So if you had a motorized scooter, or an electric scooter, they're like, oh, he's one of us. All right.
I swear to God, I did Seattle to Portland 1 year, and there was a guy in front of me for about 50 miles who was chain smoking.
On his bicycle?
On his bicycle.
That's kind of cool.
I was behind him for 50 miles.
I read that
I couldn't pass him. That's how much better of a biker he was. He was smoking, and I couldn't pass him.
I read that the Tour de France guys used to smoke because it expanded their lungs before they went uphill. I don't know. Basketball players used to smoke at halftime.
Wow.
Science is crazy.
Flat Earth Society. Okay, pick one. OHSU tram, Portland streetcar, Columbia Gorge Express bus, or the Oregon Zoo liner.
Ooh, gosh. It's tough because I used to take first 2 together because I worked at OHSU several years ago. I've never taken the Columbia Gorge bus or the last one.
The Oregon Zoo liner.
No, yeah. It's nothing against zoos, but there's something against zoos. But the tram's cool. Even it just seems like it's kind of more like for the elite, hey, here's 5 people who can ride this, let's. So yeah, streetcar, absolutely. It's air conditioned. It goes down when you're riding the streetcar through some of the neighborhood, and you're looking out the window, it's like the artist rendering. You know, like, yeah, there's people out in the common area hanging out. And you're like, it never happens that way. And on the streetcar, it does. So, yeah, the streetcar.
How romantic. Yeah. Okay, so my last question for you is, which makes you cringe more? The Real Housewives of Portland's West Hills or MTV's The Real World Alberta Arts District?
Ooh, gosh. I don't watch a lot of television, but I'm gonna go ahead and say like the Real Housewives, because I like Alberta, and I feel like there's a lot of artists who could use the exposure that MTV might bring them. Whereas like the West Hills, that's like some of Portland's oldest, most racist money, and like I don't know, I can't really. I mean, I get it. Alberta Street is a lot of gentrification, so it's like 6 one way, 6 the other.
Right.
I'm gonna go with MTV Alberta Street because I think that could actually be a really fun show. Way less drama, but more my people.
Right. Far more relatable. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Comedian Joe Hieronymus, everyone. All right. My next guest has hosted Fun Employment Radio's Carl Show and hosts a podcast that airs as part of X-Ray FM's morning program and co-hosts and co-produces a stand-up show both called Minority Retort. He's founder of the Portland Podcast Festival. Please welcome to the stage, Jason Lamb.
Wow.
Welcome, Jason. So,
Thanks for having me.
you're from Seattle?
I am. Yes.
How'd you get to Portland?
Oh, God. Well, let's see. It's a kind of a long and sad, tortured story.
Oh,
Actually,
no.
it's not that bad, really, but it's for me. For me, it was torturous. So I was supposed to be going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always wanted to be a writer, screenwriter.
We're far from Hollywood.
I found that out.
You didn't make it
Sadly.
south enough.
I found that out, yeah. No, I came here because this is back 20 years ago. It's 20 years ago this summer, actually, that I moved here. Wow. And I was coming here because I was a comic book writer at the time, and there still is a big comic book company here called Dark Horse Comics that I written a couple things. Yeah. They don't give me any work, so, you know. But I'd written a couple things for them, and I thought, hey, I'll just come here and, you know, be part of the comics community and work on some screenplays for 6 months until I moved to Los Angeles and become a screenwriter. And 20 years later, I'm here talking to you.
Wow. That's like 40%. That's a long time to be in Portland when you didn't expect it. How's the city been treating you?
Pretty well. I don't know. I think when I first moved here, it's kind of around the time when Portland really seemed to start changing full bore. Kind of like from the small town that it once was, and to, you know, all the gentrification stuff that we hear about and that you just mentioned earlier, and
Right.
you know, condos going up and all that stuff. So I don't remember old Portland. I kind of just was on the last vapor trails of that. But so I kind of have mixed feelings about Portland, but I'm not going anywhere though. It sounds like.
It's a place to stay and make it better. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you host a podcast, part of X-Ray FM, called Minority Retort. How did that get started?
So we started doing this stand-up show in 2015. It's an all-people of color comedy show, which was created as kind of a reaction to what you hear about the city being the whitest city in America, and also at the same time, you know, you hear about this great comedy scene, which Joe obviously is a fantastic part of. We just heard earlier, and so those kind of things were running together. On the one hand, great arts community, great comedy scene, but also it's the, you know, historical paradise for white people. It was invented, you know, developed to be that. And so we kind of came up with the show as a response to that. So that's how the stand-up show got started. We put out a show that features all comedians of color. And then from that, I used to do a podcast, you mentioned it earlier, called Carl Show starring Jason, where I talk to artists and creative people. And the folks at X-Raid heard that show, and they were kind of looking for something to kind of revamp their morning show. And I thought, instead of just doing the stand-up show, maybe I could do something, like a little bit more in-depth and talk about issues and talk about, stuff other than comedy and talk to people other than comedians. And so that's kind of how it got started. And I have on other creative people, not just comedians, and also, theater people and writers and all kinds of different creative voices. So, yes. Yeah, so
I was going to ask you about the theater people. So I was doing a bunch of homework and was listening to a bunch of Minority Retort episodes this past weekend. And one of the things about podcasts is that the way they're archived, you can listen to a whole bunch at a time and binge them and get like a bunch of really amazing radio quality information in a different format than you would just by tuning into the radio. You can select in. And so I was listening to your interview with Mary Catherine Nagel, one of Portland Center Stage's Indigenous women playwrights. And there's two others that are being featured this year. Mary Catherine Nagel is the writer of Mannahatta, and Larissa Fasthorse wrote the Thanksgiving play, and Delana Studi wrote And So We Walked. So I was really interested when you were talking to Mary. You made a point of saying that you were excited to have all three of those Indigenous female playwrights on your show. When you select theater is important to me because that's part of my background. How does it inform your selection of bringing people onto the show? People in theater sometimes get marginalized just because of the type of action that they're doing. Including it in your show is important.
Yeah, for me, it's really important to have people from theater on the show because I think I don't go to a lot of theater, and through the show.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the reason is because I've been able to, first of all, cultivate these relationships with people at the different theaters in town, having people on the show and stuff. And so when I've gone to the theater to see the productions of folks I'm going to have on the show, so I can get the background of when I'm interviewing them, I see a lot of white people. And
don't need to apologize for that, for the truth.
Mostly white people, like if not 95%, 99%.
Yeah.
And it's not historically been a place where I've felt, comfortable going or feel like, what's being offered on stage is something for me or for people of color. And so when the opportunity came up to do the show, I wanted to make sure that I had creative voices from theater who are people of color on the show to, promote what they do because, it's like what they say about storytelling. And storytelling is a big part of my life. And I think it's so important and it shapes who we are and how we feel about the world in a way. And for people of color, it's important because we have to tell our own stories. Otherwise, somebody else is going to, and historically, other people have. So that's why we try to promote that and different creative voices on the show.
So one of the things I love about your show is not only that it's people of color, but the people who are co-hosting your comedy show at Siren Theater, which, by the way, is run by the fabulous Shelley McClendon.
Absolutely.
At 3rd and Northwest Davis. It's co-hosted by Julia Ramos and
it took me months. Niraj Srinivasan.
Thank you. Yeah. Niraj. And I didn't write it down, so I feel a little bit better. So when you have well, first of all, how's the show going? Monthly, and you're on. I see it in Salem and in Seattle.
Yeah, we're actually going to Seattle tomorrow to do another show up there, our second show up there. The show's going great. It's semi-regular, I'd have to say. It's funny, when we first started it, people were saying, oh, you guys are gonna run out of comedians in like 6 months. Like, you guys are gonna be done. Especially, you're doing a people of color comedy show here in Portland. There's no way you're gonna last. 3.5 years later, we're still here. And the show is keep making the show bigger and better. Thank you. And still aiming to make the show bigger and better all the time. And so I say semi-regular because we try to put the show out when we have the best lineup that we can. So my goal has always been, with the show, when I realized what the potential could be, to bring people here from out of town, headlining acts, people of color acts that normally wouldn't think of coming here because, again, the narrative that it's the whitest city in America, there's probably nothing, for me there. That's, I think, what a lot of people think sometimes.
Well, and so you bring comedians in from out of town. You just had Joe Travis in. He's from Atlanta. Did he talk to you? What's his experience about Portland? Did he share any of that with you?
He's kind of an interesting case because he was at Bridgetown last year and did very well there. And I think a lot of people here like him. So he, didn't have any reservations about coming here at all. I think some people I haven't been able to get up here as of yet. There's a little bit more of a sell job, I think. But yeah. But I think with that, my goal is to, with the comedy show, is not only to put out a lineup of all people of color comedians, or bring in a people of color audience. That the comedians are going to speak to just them, but I think the goal is to kind of bring people together of all different backgrounds to share an experience, because I don't think we do enough of that. We, hide behind, social media and the internet to get our point across and live in that echo chamber, where we're just hearing our own voice echoing back at us. And we don't share an experience like we are right now in a room together very often, even though we're from different backgrounds and things like that. So.
Well, I had a question about that. So in stand-up comedy, I know that there's a history of black rooms, and then there's code switching when those black comedians would go and play main rooms. So when you're hosting a show that has such an intersection of people of color, does that change the comedy in yet a third way, do you think? Or what happens in your shows?
No, I think the biggest thing for me is the only parameters to being on the show, you have to be a person of color, which sometimes I determine what that means. And you have to be funny, and that's it. And I don't go into it with any, kind of political agenda or anything necessarily, or book people that have come from one perspective. Believe me, there's a lot of people that come from a lot of different perspectives on our show. We don't always agree. I don't always agree with the people that do our show. So that's really the common theme. So I don't think that people on our show really have to deal with that code switching stuff, which I know has been a concern of other comedians when in talking to them and putting together the show. They feel like oftentimes playing white rooms or majority white rooms in Portland, and to be honest, our show is a majority white room.
Right.
It just is what it is. But they feel like they have to, be something other than themselves. And I wanted to create a space where people of color comedians could be themselves and talk about exactly what they wanted to.
So speaking of being themselves, so you had Yodoye on both your stand-up show, but also your podcast. And I wanted to play just a little bit of the podcast with your, this is Jason Lamb's interview with Joe Travis, just a small segment of it.
Don't say anything that the president's going to tweet about, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Or do. I don't, it's Portland. It's hard to say, really.
We got to be very mindful these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's so out of control. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's right anymore.
I don't either.
what's good, what's bad.
How do you know? From day to day, it changes.
Yeah, I mean, this is a joke. I have never been able to make work, but I've been trying to do this thing where, like, it seems like just like everyone's idea of race is so out of whack now, to where people are like, "Hey, buddy, not everybody in blackface looks the same. You need to watch your mouth, racist."
So in there, actually, and for some reason, it didn't come out. You laugh during that in the podcast in a way that is so catching and charming. Do you finding a moment to get comedy out of what can be very dark issues, and that's not a people of color thing, just very, very sad, very traumatic issues, and comedy right now is being used more and more for actual communication. Are you finding that people are coming to your shows looking for some kind of understanding of what's going on with politics, what's going on with the world?
I think so. I think, as I said earlier, I don't go into it with a political agenda at all. I'm not really a politically minded person, even though we all kind of should be these days, especially these days. But I've been lucky enough in my life that I didn't have to, necessarily be a crusader in terms of politics.
Sure.
But I think that some people do come to the show looking for something that they don't normally find in a typical show in the Northwest, number one. And I think for like the people of color audience members that come, I've heard people say it's like church, where it's a place that, we can share, like I was saying earlier, a communal experience, just a time to be around people that, maybe aren't exactly like-minded, but you want to share something with. And I think that's the beauty of comedy, and can be theater, but especially comedy, where you're sharing a joyful experience. So if it's done the right way.
Well, and so speaking of joyful experiences, one of the things I found interesting with you is that, I saw that you were hosting a stand-up show, and my first assumption is that somebody who's hosting a stand-up show does stand-up comedy. I tried to stand-up comedy once, and it was not for me. It's just not where I feel the need to come back, and I don't have anything to say from that standpoint. And here you are hosting a show highlighting people who are making this. Have you wanted to be a comic, more of a stand-up and be a performer like that? Or do you like the hosting gig more?
Well, so you have to know your limitations in life, Joe. And as the audience here can attest, I'm not very funny at all.
I think they disagree already, but keep going.
No, I got involved with the comedy show because I love comedy. I mean, I've always loved comedy ever since I was a kid, and I love what they do. I think it's brave. I think what Joe just did up here, there's some bravery to it. To be able to come into a room, and I'm not saying that just because you're looking at me, but there's a bravery to it to come in and try to make strangers laugh. That takes so much guts that I do not have at all. And so I think part of the reason why I wanted to get involved with a comedy show is to uplift the people that do that. And so with that, I think I know my role. Now, don't get me wrong. I think I'm very, very funny. I have not demonstrated that at all tonight. I understand that. But that's not for... I don't want to leave that up to an audience to decide, because I just don't have the guts for it. But I'm not really a performer by nature. I think I'm more of a behind-the-scenes person that, tells people what to do. I'm much more comfortable with that.
So speaking of telling us things, tell us what you've got coming up next. How can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, well, okay, so let's see. I've got this Sunday a new show that I've done with comedian David Mascoro, It's a comedy singing competition called Fake It Till You Make It. And it's comedians singing karaoke. They're very bad at it. They think they're good at it. And it's one of my favorite things to witness because not only do they sing, and they sing very poorly, don't get me wrong, but they also have to face certain challenges along the way. So like we do a thing where they just have to sing blindfolded. They don't have the lyrics, access to the lyrics. Oh no. And they also have to put on noise-canceling headphones. And so, and then there's another part where we do where I don't know if you guys have played this game, I think it's called Watch Your Mouth, where it's kind of like a dental thing. You know what I'm talking about? It's got this plastic dental device that you put in and it stretches your mouth out. And they have to sing with that in their mouths. And the videos online are incredible. So if you would like to come check that show out, I highly recommend.
So this is Sunday where?
Sunday at the Spare Room.
Okay, great.
In Northeast Portland. Let's see. Then, as you mentioned, I'm going to Seattle tomorrow. So if you have any listeners, come check me out in Seattle. In Salem, I'll be at the Capital City Comedy Club on the 21st. And I'm really excited about my sex-themed talk show that we're bringing back for the Portland Queer Festival called A Talk Show Named Desire. I host that with comedian Crystal Kordowski and sex educator Stella Harris, and we talk about, we get into it, man. We go into some areas
awesome.
that I shouldn't even be allowed to talk about, but yeah, that's a fun show.
And yet you have a podcast all about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm a man who learns very slowly, if ever. So
so your limitations are you can't get up and talk in front of a group of and be funny in front of a group of people, but you can talk about sex behind their backs.
Right, but I'm also the sweaty, nervous guy talking about sex, though. I let them handle like the real stuff, and I'm just like, really? You guys put that? Really? I never heard of that.
Okay, that sound means it's time for the second Fast Five. Jason, are you ready for these Fast
am ready.
Five?
I am
All
ready.
right.
Yes.
So let me go find my card
They're
again.
not real fast, by the way. I have listened to a couple shows, and they're not real fast.
No, I know they're not. I should rename them to the Long Five. What's your favorite nickname for Portland?
You know, I gotta disagree with Joe that I heard up here earlier. He liked the simplicity of Bridgetown, but I gotta go with, I think it's a little too simplistic for me, you know? There's not a lot of creative thought behind it. So I like Stumptown. I think Stumptown works for me. It's got a little edge to it, even though I'm not looking for edge in my town necessarily, but, you know, it's like some shit went down here at Stumptown, you know? Trees went down. Yeah.
Yeah. So not named after the 11 bridges, but named after 50,000 dead trees. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you so far.
Plus, it sounds like just a rascally friend of yours, you know. What else? Stumptown's coming over later. Oh, okay, cool.
Oh my gosh. What's your favorite summer outdoor activity in town?
Not applicable.
Air conditioning, right?
I don't fuck with the outdoors, Joe. That stuff will kill you, man.
You live in one of the greenest cities, one of the most wonderful cities to explore the outdoors, and you don't take advantage of it.
Hell no.
These new electric scooter things, worth every cent or totally senseless?
This is a tough one. I haven't really seen them. So,
You know what? Me either. I've just seen tons of news reports about them. Like, be scared, everyone's coming on scooters, and then real life, none of them.
I'm just for, as a motorist, I'm for whoever's going to move out of my way the quickest.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting in the way of different things, which one of these would you rather not be in front of? No, just pick one. OHSU tram, the Portland streetcar, the Columbia Gorge Express bus, or the Oregon Zoo liner.
Well, it can't be the Gorge bus because that's going somewhere outdoors, and I'm not messing with that.
That's pretty much a given, yeah.
Zoos are evil. I got to go with the tram, man. That's like, have you been on it?
I haven't.
It's
Have
dope,
you?
man. It's so cool. It's like it's
Tourist?
from the future, you know? It's like, am I in Blade Runner right now? This is so cool. Yeah, I got to go with the tram.
All
Yes,
right.
I love it.
Okay, so now I guess I should actually go do that once. Okay, now which makes you cringe more? And I'm going to change this up a little bit. Real Housewives of the Pearl or MTV's Real World Happy Valley?
Hey, man, things get real out in Happy Valley. I don't know if you guys have been. Boy, oh boy. How can they call themselves the Real Housewives? By the way, does anybody watch those shows, the Real Housewives? Yeah, I don't get it.
There's nothing real or house or wives about them, right?
Exactly. That's not a thing that's actually happening, is it?
What's that?
That's not a thing that's actually happening here, is it?
No, but if anyone is listening in Hollywood, I have an idea.
I was going to say, you should pitch that.
You can
I
write
can
it.
end up in Hollywood, man. Let's do it.
Executive producers, Lamb and Lions. In like lions, out like lambs. So I was going to try to write that joke earlier. I swear, my whole introduction was written around that like 2 or 3 days ago, and I could not come up with a good joke to include that, and now I've done just as I'm sending you away.
Nicely done.
Thank you for being here, Jason.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
My Real Portland is brought to you by me, Joseph Lyons, realtor with Cooper Realty. I help home buyers and sellers across the Portland metro area make their real dreams become real estate. Learn more about me at josephlyons.com. All right, I've got names in a glass, in a pint glass, and I'm going to draw 2 names to come up to play My Real Portland, the game show. All right. Contestant number 1, please come up to the stage. Catherine Schmidt. And contestant number 2, Lauren McKenzie. All right, have a seat. And I'm going to give you this microphone.
Thank you.
Say hello.
Hi. We don't have the same last name, but we are sisters.
Your sister. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
so remind me, who is who?
I'm Catherine.
Hi, Catherine, and
I'm Lauren.
Lauren. Hi, Catherine and Lauren. All right, so Portland is known for its rich music history, especially in the last few decades. What was that?
She's a music aficionado.
Oh, perfect. Well, this is perfect for you. All right. So I have 7 questions about music in the Portland area. And after I ask each question, you'll buzz in by saying your name. That's how I'll know that you're ready to answer your question. So let's give it a test. The name of the lounge that often features live musical acts that we are currently in is known as
Catherine.
Catherine.
Jade Lounge.
The Jade Lounge. That is correct. All right. So that is how we play the game. Question number 1. You know the rules? You know how to ring it?
Got it.
Loretta Lynn sings Portland, Oregon and Slow Gin Fizz. If that ain't blank, then tell me what is.
Catherine.
Yes, Catherine.
Love?
Love is correct. Was that a total guess?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sure, yes. Yes.
Question number 2. In 1986, you could go to Nordstrom to buy these. That's also the name of a local band known for the song I Can't Wait. We have help from the
Joe?
audience. Okay, so time's out. Joe? No. You could go to Nordstrom and buy thermals, though. That's a great idea. Hi, welcome. Okay,
I don't know.
so the answer is new shoes. New shoes, everyone.
right.
You don't remember new shoes? I
Little
can't
bit,
wait.
little bit. I didn't live here.
Oh my gosh, it was my favorite song of 1986. Okay. She was 2011's Grammy Award-winning Best New Artist and a native Portlandian.
Grammy Award.
2011's Grammy Award-winning Best New Artist.
We should know this.
The genre is jazz. No one? Does anyone in the audience know it? Know
I
it?
don't know.
Esperanza Spalding. We're looking for Esperanza Spalding.
Oh, Dad likes her.
What was that?
Our dad likes her.
Oh,
Fun fact.
she really is phenomenal. Question number 4. So far, we have Catherine for 1.
Yes.
Two. Or just the one.
Just
Oh, you got Jade Lounge.
Oh, Jade Lounge didn't count.
oh, that was just a test.
But thank you.
And Lauren has none. All right, so this is your chance to bring it back. This is another jazz question. This famous Portland resident and jazz musician wrote the famous Schoolhouse Rock song, I'm Just a Bill.
Love that song.
Anyone know this? Anyone know? How about that? I've got like really interesting trivia here. I thought everyone would know this. No one? No one? Okay, Dave Frischberg.
Oh, that's a good song.
Dave Frischberg. I know, right? He didn't write it when he lived here, though. He moved here in 86. He wrote that song in 1973 when he lived in Los Angeles. Okay, question number 5, random things that I happen to know. In 2017, this Portland band, who participated in Obama's White House initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, won a Supreme
Lauren.
Court case. Lauren.
The Slants.
The Slants is correct. Won a Supreme Court case to keep the right to use their band name. Fantastic. Congratulations. We are 1 for 1. Okay, you're going to need to be quick on this one. This Everclear lead singer's name has...
Lauren.
Lauren.
Art Alexakis.
That is correct. Lauren, you have taken the lead with 2 points. Our last question might be a little challenging. In November 2016, rapper Aminé, sang on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and added an additional phrase to his song Caroline, especially to Donald Trump and his supporters, which went, "You could never make America great again. All you did was make this country hate again." Now, Aminé got his start rapping diss tracks about rival high schools, Grant High and Lincoln High. What Portland high school did he graduate from? Catherine. Going for a guess.
Madison.
Madison is not correct. Lauren?
I'm going to guess Lincoln.
That was one of his rival high schools, so it's not Grant or Lincoln. Jefferson, no.
Franklin?
Franklin, no.
Who's left?
Anyone?
Cleveland?
No.
Benson?
Benson! That's correct! Catherine, okay, my gosh, that means we have a
That's
tie.
only 7 of them.
We have a tie, and I said I was going to come up with a with a tiebreaker question earlier today, and then I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. On 13th Avenue in Southwest Portland, there is a recording studio that was the site of a very famous Portland song being recorded in the late 50s. In the 90s, this recording studio became an atheist church and is now an office space. Do you know the name of the song recorded there?
No, but it might have been Paul Revere.
Oh, you are close.
Closer than me, so.
And it's being slightly sung by the audience. No one's getting it? Louie. Okay.
Oh, seriously?
So you know what? Here's the thing. No one gets us, which means we have 2 winners. So I get 2 people going home with pint glasses.
Right.
My next guest is a Portland musician who I've known for years, and I can't believe I am about to have him on my show tonight. He's a jingle writer for the Todd Glass Show. Now, if you don't know the Todd Glass Show, one of my favorite podcasts, which happens to be voted #1 by the Podcasters Association of America. I've been listening to Joe's songs for years on that show, and when it came time to do the show, I asked him to actually compose the theme song to the show, and we'll hear that again at the end of the show. So please welcome to My Real Portland musician Joe McKenzie.
The picture is staggering across the board from unknown enemies. You follow along, you follow along. Erasing subtlety, so when it hurts, it's one thing only when you follow along, you follow Don't say no, a better way out. You can only go the way you're told. Follow you follow, you follow. A parent's line you choose echoes in a show. You'll never be confused. Follow along, follow along. When you follow along.
Joe, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
So, this is my real Portland. What's your real Portland? How did you wind up here in Portland?
Well, I grew up in Florida with this lovely game show contestant over here. And I stayed there for college, for music school. And I was a little older. So when I graduated, she had moved out here for Reed College.
Oh,
so
awesome.
she came out here to Reed. So as soon as I graduated college, I'm like, all right, I'll come check out Portland for a while. And I loved it. It was great. Then she was getting close to graduate, and I got a job offer back in Florida. Took that, and then she went off and did nursing school and whatnot. And we got married there in Florida, and I took a road trip all across the country. And my friend Andy and I hit Portland. I was like, why did we ever move? This is stupid. So then we got on the plan about I don't know, 12 years ago. We made it back here.
Well, fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, welcome. You're still relatively new.
I'm a newcomer.
What's your favorite thing about Portland? If anyone asks you that question, because I don't know how I'd answer that, but you have a little bit of objective to it.
I mean, I'll go proximity because everything is within reach. I mean, deserts and coasts and mountains. But I mean, for me, I just love the outside. Any of the parks nearby. I don't know. The weather's always good for me. It's not that much rain. It's always pretty mild.
Just yesterday, it was cloudy and not warm for summer. And all I had to do was drive over the Cascades for a few hours, and I was in 97-degree heat in the desert. So, how did the idea for writing jingles for the Todd Glass Show, a podcast, come up?
It's also a wife-related question. So
She's a nurse midwife, and so she has 24-hour call shifts a lot. When we first moved here, she was working in Newburgh, so it's quite a drive down there to go visit. And so I'd listen to a lot of shows, and I'd see Doug Benson in town and listen to his show. And then I heard Graham Elwood on his show talking about, I just did the Todd Glass show. It's like you never know what's coming next. It's like cool. So I'm go to download. I'm like, these are like 2-hour plus episodes. I can listen to it on the way there and on the way back. So. But yeah, so he had originally Lynn Shore, who still does contribute some music here and there, but he'd just basically sing with a karaoke track. And then there's so many other music cues in the show. Like I was on the drive one of those days, and I was just listening to, like, they were playing It's a Kind of Hush all over the world. There's a Kind of Hush. And I started riffing like a lot of the things from the show, and I was like, I might do that. And so when he came to Helium one of the times, I was like, okay, I'm going to record this. I finished it that day, went to see him that night, and like burned it on a CD. You remember those?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
This is a long time ago. Yeah, so I like met up with him after the show, and I was like, hey, I know you like jingles. I'll give you this one. So that just put me in contact, and then he's like, can you do more?
Oh, that's
So I
hysterical.
did a lot more.
So the Todd Glass Show has famous comedians on every week, and so Joe has written the intro theme songs for all these comedians who I've known and been familiar with, and then all of a sudden here's this really catchy little jingle about each comedian. And I know it's this music writer from Portland, because Todd Glass always talks about how great Joe McKenzie is, and it was just so funny to think there's this other Joe that listens to the Todd Glass Show in Portland, and it's not me. So you mentioned Doug Benson with Doug Loves Movies and a bunch of others. I started listening to WTF with Mark Maron. That was one of my first intros to podcasts. What podcasts are you listening to now?
Ooh, so many. Let's see. I really like lately is this show Disgraceland. I think his name's Jake Brennan. He's a LA guy, but it's all these different stories about different rock stars and musicians through the days. Like it's a Chuck Berry episode, a Jerry Lee Lewis, but like all these crazy things that happen. And I don't know, he's got a kind of a noir style of delivering it, so just kind of a nice little story to do.
You know who also has kind of a little noir style is the Dana Gould Hour. Have you ever listened to that? Yeah. Oh my gosh, really fantastic podcast. You'll love it. Okay, this is a totally random question. You recently shared a photo of chocolate dipped Doritos and chocolate dipped Slim Jims on your Twitter. Sure. Have you ever had, so here's my question for you. Have you ever had warm Fritos dipped in melted Nutella?
I would, but I have not.
Let me just tell you.
Is he bringing it out right there in the kitchen guy?
Oh my God, that'd be hysterical.
No, I would. I mean, I've liked Frito pie before, but I would take it on the sweet side.
It's amazing. It's a great suggestion to any of you who would go out for picnics. Jason, you can eat them inside, I'm sure.
Okay, there you go.
They're really great in hot weather, but warm Fritos and melted Nutella. Okay.
Wow.
I want to share a song. What did I write here? Oh yeah. I wrote these cards this morning, and so some of these questions don't quite make sense until I read through them again. I want to share a song that my partner and I sing to each other all the time from the Todd Glass Show that you wrote. And it's the song that gets played on the Todd Glass Show when he wants to end a bit.
Run, 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 run from the bit. Run, 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 run.
I just love it. Anytime this comes up, you just know that you can just end whatever joke you're on and just move on, like I'm going to do right now. Okay, so who are you into as a musician? Are you following anyone locally? What's your influences?
Yeah, well, as many people who know me, I can't stop listening to Dr. Dog. It's like my favorite band in the world nowadays. Yeah, they're from Philadelphia. They're classic rocky, but lots of harmonies, lots of hooks. Just the total package. But yeah, I love them, and Tame Impala and Temples, all these things with new ideas but old sounds are pretty good. Yeah,
fantastic. What projects are you working on next?
Well, it started a monthly song project that I'm falling behind on, but I've got you know.
When did you start last month?
We started in January, which was good. January is
Sorry,
really
that was
good.
mean. That was really mean.
February is good. You know, been traveling a little, but I have a couple things in the works. But what my idea for that is there's a bunch of old tunes that I didn't like put on a record anywhere, so I'm kind of like revisiting them and reimagining them. So I think I've got 3 or 4 of them.
And then all things that you've written yourself.
Yeah, so this is a decades long catalog deep dive. Because from popular demand,
Right.
that's what people are looking for.
How long does it generally take you to get from a song idea to getting something published?
In the world of self-publishing, it's sort
Right.
of just whenever I can be done recording it, right?
Mhm.
So, but
So
these
there's
are old
no-
tunes, so I know how they go. It's just sort of a matter of choosing the instrumentation and mainly carving out the proper amount of time to go start to finish
and
while
time management.
kids
yeah.
are not trying to sleep and those kinds of things.
So how can people follow you? How
So-
can people stay in touch with you and find out when you've got shows coming up? And
Yeah, so I guess my Twitter bio has a couple different links in it, and that's Jolamite PDX. And so yeah, it's got a link. I've got a YouTube channel. It's got almost all the Todd Glass Show jingles on it, which is good. And then there's a link to the Bandcamp that I'm doing these under. I've been calling that self-titled soundtrack. So that's where the new songs will be emerging from. And I usually tweet about those ones and don't tweet a whole lot of other stuff. So
fantastic.
it's a safe follow.
Great. Well, you got another song in you?
All right, I can do one.
Oh, but
I'm
well,
gonna
hey,
keep it-
before you
yeah,
do that,
let's
let's
do it.
do.
Uh-oh.
We still have to do our final Fast Five of the evening. And as Jason says, it's not going to be very fast at all. Joe, what is your favorite nickname for Portland?
I like Rose City, or City of Roses.
Mm-hmm.
I just I love it. When we our first house, I planted a lot of roses. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. I got the book. I did everything by the book. I still basically do things by the book, but because I don't like to deviate. If something works, there's a system. I like to respect that. But yeah, I do like the roses here. I think it's I don't know. It's what I think of when I think of Portland a lot of times.
Did you know that Portland was the city of roses before you moved out here?
I think I might have known on my visit, but yeah, I don't know. And then like
We're-
the first
we're
trip
so
to a rose garden or something. Okay,
Right.
wow, this is serious. This is a science. This is
Are there roses are there roses in Florida?
yeah, there's tons. I never got into them, and it's weird. Like I'll go back and visit my sister, and she'll have one blooming in a very strange month, like it's March or whatever. I'm like, this is weird. What's going on? Like usually it's like, oh, this is the end of the school year. It's May.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes I'll hang on through October, but yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to them there,
Funny.
sadly.
What's your favorite summer outdoor activity in town?
Trail running. I'm a distance runner. I've become a distance runner the past couple years. So yeah.
Well, we have something to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't look like it, but I've done that as well.
All right. let's do it.
What's your favorite trail then?
Well, I live really close to Mount Tabor, so I run that a lot. But
Uh-huh.
a lot of times when my friends on the west side, we meet up at Forest Park, Wildwood.
Mhm.
So we've been doing sections of it. I have a goal to do it at some point in its entirety, but I've got to figure out where the water drops are
Mm-hmm.
and things because it's a long haul to go solo.
What's your longest run?
I just did an ultra marathon in Sun River last month, so 31 miles, 50K.
Cool.
Yeah.
I told you. Okay, these new electric scooter rental things, worth every cent or totally senseless?
I feel like I may have seen one time and wondered what it was, but I guess I would go with totally senseless. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Makes you think of like a security cop on a Segway kind of deal. I don't know. It doesn't sound good if I'm always running all the time.
I'm like, right, just your feet will get you there. Right? Pick one: OHSU tram, Portland streetcar, Columbia Gorge Express bus, or Oregon Zoo liner.
If it was during Zoo Lights, it might be close, but the tram is really sweet, and I've got kids, and they think it's awesome, and it's a great ride.
Okay, so that's two
so
votes
yeah,
for what
I'll
I
have
need to do this
yeah,
summer,
you
which
should
is
check it out. It's
the tram.
if you go to the top, it's a free ride down, so you only pay on the way up, but it's also fun to ride up on a bike and bomb down and that kind of stuff.
There you go. But good exercise getting up the trails.
Yeah, definitely.
Which makes you cringe more, Real Housewives of Portland's West Hills or MTV's Real World Alberta Arts District?
The fear of the unknown makes me cringe about the Housewives. I haven't seen any of those.
Honestly,
I did see
neither
one or
have
two
I.
of the Real Worlds in the old days, so it's at least a known quantity. But yeah, it sounds more horrifying. Potentially.
The Real Housewives.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So thank you one more time for Joe McKenzie. He's got another song in him.
When they can't bother watching life past a screen, and never tire of drawing circles, circles. It's only history. It's only history being made, being made, being made. Believe in what you see, it's all so easy. These touches only take me so far, so far. It's only history. It's only history being made, being made, being made. To the two, to the two, to and what the cameras can't show casts a negative glow over what was thrown away. It's fresh until it's passing, promptly replaced. The headlines never lasting and fading, fading. It's only history. It's only history being made, being made,
Woo! Thank you. Thank you, Joe McKenzie. And thank you to all my guests, Jason Lamb and Joe Hieronymus and Joe McKenzie. And thank you to the Jade Lounge. You've been the greatest audience, the My Real Portland audience. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Our next show will be here live at Portland's Jade Lounge at Southeast 23rd and Ankeny on August 14th at 7 p.m. Happy hours at 6:30, so get here early, and good night.
It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer. So pick up a beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band. It's My Real Portland.